On that first covey of huns, when we drop those dogs out, like obviously you go into a new area, you're not expecting a bird. At least from me personally, like I got to kind of figure it out first. And to watch that little young dog, 6 months old, only been on pigeons, to watch her just go out and lock up on point, and Tyson is over there yelling at me. He's like, "Hey, I think Molly's on point over there."
Once the older dogs came in and pointed, we're like, okay, like this is real. This is real. like there's
she's not kidding.
She's
like a 6-month-old dog. There's no way that there's gonna be birds right there. And we keep walking up, and they kind of relocated on their own. And then Groot, one of the older poodle pointers, he kind of stepped out front, and then they held their ground. And all of a sudden, 30 huns popped up, and I was dumbfounded. I don't even think we hit one, did we?
You hit one, I missed.
Oh, that's right.
It's the dog work overshadows the fact that you actually shot a bird.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of GDIY. I am joined on the prairies of Montana by Tyson Bowden and Lars Anderson. Tyson, you just couldn't help but slide into my DMs once you saw that I was in Montana and you're in the area.
100%. I knew you were here, and I had to come see your face. So.
Yeah. Well, how long ago was it that you and I did the episode talking about Western hunting, and then here we are just randomly able to link up while in Montana at the same time?
I think it was back in probably February.
Yeah.
March, February, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah. We were just talking Western hunting in general, trying to scratch that hunting itch that we have in the spring,
100%.
Went by too fast, and we're like, how are we ever going to get to the next fall? And then here we are. This is y'all's first trip up to Montana, right?
It is, yes.
Brief me. How's it been for you guys? Bird numbers, hunting stories. Don't give any specific locations.
I think it's been next level. I mean, we're used to chasing Sharpies up in Idaho because you have to draw in Utah. So for us to be able to come up here and have access to public ground and see birds on every plot of land that we've been on has just been amazing, especially for having younger dogs, and just having them get that bird contact has just been insane. It's been so much fun.
I would agree with that. I echo off what Lars said, but I mean, when we're hunting them out west, like down Utah, Idaho area, where the birds are so jumpy, and up here it's super nice. Your dog goes on point and they're sitting for you, so it's nice. But yeah, good bird numbers from everything that we've seen. So,
talk to me what it's like coming up here. New place, new area. Hunting at home is one thing, hunting in a place that you go to every year, but every time you go to a new area, it's kind of intimidating for a lot of people. You don't know what you're getting into. Every state has different regulations. Each kind of public land has different rules. What's it been like, you guys narrowing down where you guys actually drop the dogs?
Man, it's been a whole just learning experience for us. I mean, we just hopped on X and tried to find some access to where we think that birds would be. I mean, because we're so new to this whole Sharpie stuff that we're like, I think that looks good from all the videos that we've watched and everything like that. So we just picked an area that we've heard that there's birds there and that looks like there's birds. And we went up there, and first place that we stopped on our way down here, we had a dog go on point 100 yards from the truck on some huns, and then about 30 minutes later had Titan, that's Tyson's dog, lock up on a covey of Sharpies. So
awesome bird work too, which has been awesome for all the dogs, and then on those like first spots with the huns and the Sharpies. I mean, it's you start learning real quick, and then you start figuring out what they're eating, all that, and then you start on the next few days of, okay, we got to figure out, we'll look for this stuff, look for that CRP grass, and then go off of that and start putting it all together.
Yeah. I tell everybody that I get asked a lot, I had a few questions today, like yourself slipping into the DMs, trying to figure stuff out. I tell everybody, you just got to go. You just got to hit the road and go, because like you guys said, it's like, we're going to drop here. I think it looks good. We don't know. But then you're rewarded right out of the gate. But oftentimes that's not the case. And I tell everybody, don't get frustrated. You don't know what you don't know. You got to go to learn. And part of that is the failure. And it's like, give yourself the first trip somewhere to kind of not bomb, but go into it as a learning experience. And then the second time, you're going to find a little bit more luck. And then the third time, that's really when it lights off. And you're going to figure it out throughout the process. But, I think it does help, while it's not the same as hunting home, obviously there's commonalities that you can apply. And regardless if you've even been on this specific ground, you being a hunter and just getting experience hunting what you can when you can, you're going to start picking up on some of the commonalities. You know, a transition is a transition, whether you're in the grouse woods or the prairie. Sometimes I think a lot of people just, Lars, you and I were talking about like what to look for out on the prairie, and it's just like if you start just looking on the hillside, you can start seeing just little subtle transitions from different types of grass or like little small shrubs, and so it's neat that people such as yourself can just come out here, park the truck, and just go out there and within 100 yards be on birds.
Be on birds, yeah. It's just subtle too, like you said. It's not like you're driving and there's an alfalfa field, then a straw field, and then CRP grass. No, it like when you're going through the prairie, it's a subtle just change in elevation or subtle difference in grasses, or one spot's got a lot more water in the year, so it's way greener. But it's just those subtle changes. If you can start picking up on those, I mean, you'll start finding those little spots where the birds are sitting, and then, like I was saying earlier, you start, okay, they're there, not on that ridge. Because there's nothing there. Start fine-tuning it down. So
did you guys ever find yourselves in the position to where like you're over analyzing or looking at onX too much, second guessing yourself? Because when I go to places for the first time, especially, I've found myself I'm looking at that screen, almost waiting for like a bird to say, "I'm right here." And going, and throughout the years, I've just learned like, look, just get into bird country and just go walk. Even if you're skunked, you start piecing it together.
Yeah, and onX has that recent imagery thing.
Yeah, that's
so you're sitting on that, and we're like zooming in. Like, I have my iPad, and so we're getting the bigger screens. We're like, okay, and then, I mean, just get out and go, and I mean that helps you out, gives you a good starting place. But
I mean, it's been a little bit tricky for us because I don't know how many times we've actually chased Sharpies in multiple different states other than our home state of Utah, and we have not killed a Sharpie until this trip. So that part of it's been amazing. We've been in contact with Sharpies, but
we've seen a lot of Sharpies.
Have y'all picked up on anything out here that you think will apply when you go back home on those home birds? I know it's same bird, but Utah is a little different than like Montana or the Dakotas.
100%.
Yeah, I think that just the country that they're in, I would have suspected them to be in completely different stuff. I thought it would be a little bit more thicker, maybe just like a little bit more cover. But the places that we've been finding them, it's kind of like a perfect ground to where it's not too thick, not too tall, but it also still offers that cover. And I think that's the biggest thing that we'll be able to take back home with us and use it on our local birds.
About what height, grass, and cover have you been finding them in? And you can shoo Rachel off for those that maybe not watching. My needy little 11-year-old short hair. She's needy. She's gonna let you pet her as long as you want, but shoo her away. But about how tall was the cover bin that you guys have been
I'd say it's probably about 8-9 inches. But then surrounding areas, like they'll be in a pocket that's 6 feet wide by 6 feet wide. That's that 6 to 9 inches, and then there could be some taller bushes around them. That's 12 to 24 inches.
Yeah,
that kind of provides that little bit of cover.
Yeah, I was talking to a few guys, and they were saying, I mean, just get like a regular basketball, and if that basketball can fit in the grass without really, I mean, not going over the top of it, but it fits in there, and you're not crushing the grass, then you're not in too thick of stuff. And then you find that right height too. So like when you're walking through, look at a basket, think of a basketball. Like, okay, I can put a basketball here. It's not going to crush all the grass, but so it's more open for those birds to be able to walk through and everything.
I think it would shock a lot of people. The type, like, it doesn't take that tall of a grass for a basketball to just disappear. And a local biologist at a little WMA field day showed me that a few years ago. I wasn't aware of it, and we're talking about just bobwhite quail cover in the southeast, and he threw it out there, and it made a lot of sense. And it kind of goes into what I was talking to you about earlier, Lars, like, in terms of height, I just look for head height for the bird, right? And if you've never seen a bird or held a bird, and you're picture just a small yard chicken, everybody's been around chickens at some point, and it's like they would like that level height of grass. Typically speaking, sometimes you find them in taller, sometimes even shorter, but typically speaking, that's what they like because they want to be able to periscope and be able to see out and maybe hear and all that stuff, but to your point, be able to move and flush if needed as well.
Exactly, and that first covey we found of Sharpies. There was 4 of them. Titan, my dog, was on point, and there's that one bird sticking its head up, and you can see it periscoping around. So it's that perfect height where it's like, okay, you can still hide, but they can still see you coming, and so and then they can move around and all that good stuff.
So when you guys are coming out, you guys are hitting the road. We say don't get expectations, but we all have expectations, or at least goals or hopes. What was it that when y'all were leaving and heading out of the driveway, it's just like, all right, this is going to be a successful trip if fill in the blank.
This is going to sound really bland, but we wanted our dogs to point a Sharpie.
That was it.
Yep. That was our main goal, was to have Titan and Rika point a Sharpie, because that's something that we haven't really been able to do. We've chased them so much and we've seen birds, but we haven't been able to get a point, so haven't been able to shoot them. That was probably the number one goal. I'd say probably number 2 was get a point out of my 6-month-old dog, and that happened right out of the get-go. I don't know if you had any other goals, but those were the
just
2.
Just mainly get dogs on birds and see as many as we can see.
Yeah.
But the 2 goals that Lars mentioned, those are, we left at midnight Saturday, so Sunday morning, midnight, to start driving up here. That's a whole nother story, but that's the only thing we talked about. Is we want dogs to point Sharpies, and then go down that road. 6-month-old, get her on as much birds as possible.
Yeah, I love it. Give me the story. Like you said, it already happened. Break down the full story. Everybody loves a good hunting story. So tell me how it broke down, who shot, how the dog acted, who yelled like a little girl excited, all the good fun
Probably
details.
both of us. On the Sharpies, is definitely both of us.
Yeah, on that first covey of Huns, when we dropped those dogs out, we weren't, obviously you go into a new area, you're not expecting a bird, at least from me personally. I got to kind of figure it out first, and to watch that little young dog that's 6 months old, only been on pigeons all summer, but to watch her just go out and lock up on point, and Tyson is over there yelling at me. He's like, "Hey, I think Molly's on point over there," and I'm looking at him like,
as the older dogs come in and are like, once the older dogs came in and pointed, we're like, okay, this is real. This is real.
She's not kidding.
She's 6-month-old, first time on wild birds. We didn't have high expectations, but they come in and point, and we're like, oh.
Yeah, and then I was like, there's no way. 6-month-old dog, there's no way that there's going to be birds right there. And we keep walking up, and they kind of relocated on their own. And then Groot, one of the older poodle pointers, he kind of stepped out front, and then they held their ground. And all of a sudden, 30 Huns popped up, and I was dumbfounded. I don't even think we hit one, did we?
You hit one, I missed.
Oh, that's right.
the dog work overshadows the fact that you actually shot a bird.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works. So many people, you'll hear people say it's about the dog work for them, and then you hear a story such as that, and you start recognizing who actually means it's about the dog work, because you just, it's your dog's first point, 6-month-old, and it's like the results didn't even matter to you, that you hit a bird.
Yeah.
It was just the fact that your dog found pointed, and you got to flush them. And it just goes to show that we're all out there. We want to shoot the bird. We want to complete the sequence, but just seeing the dogs connect the dots like that, it puts it on another level for you when you come at it from that perspective.
Oh yeah. That's what this trip's been. The coolest part about it was just watching these dogs learn the country, learn the area, and just progressively get better over time. And then you want to tell them about that Sharpie, our first Sharpie point that we were freaking out about.
The one that Tyson did, same field.
Yep.
To lay a little bit of the land too, we come to a new spot. I'm on YouTube typing in Sharpies Montana, and there's some awesome videos out there, and everyone's hunting Kool Aids and all that kind of stuff. So we got the Huns, we dropped down to the Kool Aids, there's gonna be birds in here because everyone on YouTube there's birds on there. We actually didn't find any birds in the Kool Aid there, but we looped up. We're walking across the CRP grass, and I get the beep notification that my dog's on point, and I look up, I'm like, oh, Titan's on point, let's go look. And we get over and locked up. And I was like, oh, you just go over the ridge and you just see his white tail sticking up, locked up. Then all the other dogs, we had 4 dogs on the ground: Titan, Groot, the poodle pointer, Rika, Lars's German wire hair, and then the little puppy, short hair. And they all come in back. And we're like, okay, like, I was thinking it was Huns because that's the same area the Huns landed in. And we walk in, and all of a sudden you see that little head pop up of the Sharpie and start. And at this point, me and Lars are amped because we may have a shot at a Sharpie. Walk in, they come up when Lars doubled on the first Sharpie rise, and I I hit one and whiffed on the other one. But
so you doubled, you got the
one.
third one,
Yeah.
missed, so you could have both doubled potentially over the point.
Yeah, it was
that's gonna stick with you for a while.
Yeah.
That's a memory right there, and then you always have trash talk
Oh,
readily
yeah.
available.
Lars has his fair share of trash talk this trip. I mean, we can really jump into it if we want, but like putting shells in your gun's a good thing to do as well. That's a good one.
I've had a few buddies that have learned that lesson as well, but that's part of the fun, especially when you share camp with buddies. Is you're gonna have slumps, you're gonna have stupid mistakes like that.
Oh yeah,
and if there's nobody there to witness it and poke fun and remind you a healthy number of times through the following years, then it's just an annoyance. It's just an error. But at least if you have a buddy, then it's for a purpose, right? You're bringing levity to the group almost.
Yeah.
Speaking of sharing camp and everything, you guys, pretty good setup. Like you just got the dogs, you got the truck, and you guys have just been going around setting up camp similar to our group. You know, we're a mobile little setup to where I got tired of being like having a base stuck down to where I'm driving in and out, and I felt like I was wasting a lot of time behind the wheels. So the mobile camping setup, that's kind of the goal and what I'm trying to get into this year. You guys have been doing the same thing. Talk to me about what it's like doing this to where you can do it on a budget, to where it's convenient and efficient. You know, describe your setup and y'all's process. Because it doesn't have to be as fancy as what a lot of people think.
Yep. So we brought a canvas tent just in case, like, it started to rain on us. But then we each have our cots, and we decided, like, we're just going to tent camp it. We don't know where we're going to camp, but
when we came, we were looking at all the bird stuff, and we honestly didn't even think about where we were going to camp because we saw BLM land and state land. And put 2 and 2 together, like, oh, Utah, we can go camp on that. So, BLM land. We came up and we're like, we'll find some BLM land wherever we end up.
It's same exact thing for me. I kept getting asked by my buddies and family, people I actually trust with like locations, where I was going to go, and I'm not trying to hide anything, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to go and stuff like that. It's just BLM land. You can camp and leave no trace, of course, clean up 100%. After yourself. You can do that on BLM, different state lands, national forests are always that. And I've found to where it truly is, you can just go where the birds take you, and you're not anchored down to one location. But there's certain things that you can be safe about. If you got family at home, I know you're a father and you're married and all that stuff. So, I took my Garmin inReach, gave the link to my wife, and like, look, if you ever need to know where I'm at, you can ping me on this, and it's no big deal. It tracks through the watch.
Exactly.
But it adds a little bit of spontaneity. Like, I enjoy not knowing where I'm going to lay my head at night, and it really is just like, if you get into birds, we can just stay here all day, or we can go to a completely different area, and then y'all are just camping out underneath the stars, like big sky country, right? Like just waking up and you got the stars up in the sky, man. It's pretty special.
No, it's been awesome. It's been way cool. I mean, we have the truck, the dog trailer, our cots right there, and then the dogs on their stakeouts right there. And then obviously if it gets cold or something, we'll throw them in the trailer and the kennels. But it's a perfect setup. We can set up real quick, and we can in the morning we can get up, throw the cots in, throw the dogs in the trailer, give them food, water,
and it really is that simple. It's like early season. You might look at the temperature. This is something that I seem to relearn this every single year. It's like, 80 and 90 degrees here is not the same as 80 to 90 degrees back at home in the southeast. It's lacking humidity, and it still gets hot.
Thank goodness.
Right? 90 degrees is still 90 degrees. It still gets hot, but at least at night, 50 degrees is a lot chillier with no humidity than back at home. And so, people thinking this, you can really just bring a cot out here, and as long as it's not raining and it's too windy, it's pretty freaking comfortable in my opinion.
Oh yeah. And that's why we have the tent, just in case it was going to rain. But I mean, we looked at maybe getting a hotel, and we're like, that's going to be too much. And then we were going to bring up a camp trailer, and I'm like, well, I mean, we want to keep it relatively cheap, and I don't want to be playing Tetris in the back of my truck with dog kennels.
Yeah.
So let's load up the light dog trailer and bring that. And
what about food, showers? I'm assuming just bird bathing it with some baby wipes or something.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Baby wipes, and then one of our biggest struggles was finding water. We brought up 12 gallons of water, and we couldn't find water anywhere. We ended up going to this little gas station, and we had to pay 60 cents a gallon for some water. So
hey, that's better. Where we linked up, that's what we were doing. We had to go back in town and get water. That's what especially when you have dogs galore and you're actually hunting and cooking and all that stuff, like you use up a lot more water than what you think. And so we had to go into town, get water, and that gas station we linked up with, they just said no, so we ended up going to the grocery store, and it's fine, but went down there, found another spigot, fill up, and now it's like if you set it up right, you're aware of that. You have a couple different backup tanks and whatnot, and I see that you got the tank on your dog trailer. How much is that water?
So it's a 7-gallon tank on the dog trailer, and then we had a blue 5-gallon jug.
The same one I have over here. Okay,
and we may or may not have left it on the tongue of the trailer and ran it over, so it is now in the garbage can. Flat as can be. So we have 7 gallons, and then we bought some a few 1-gallon jugs.
Yeah.
And
dude, those are clutch.
Oh yeah.
People think 1 gallon, I'm not doing. I can't tell you how many times that 1 gallon just comes in clutch when you need it.
Oh, I mean, there's times I'll just stick it right on the spigot of the dog trailer. We'll fill it up, and then I don't have to worry about turning on the pump and everything. It's just and then we just dump it right in for the water.
And I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. The blue cubes you can get at any Walmart, and it holds 5 gallons. So I have 2 5-gallon jugs, 1-gallon jug just for the emergency thing, and then I have the road shower tank up on top of the rack with 8 gallons, and it's just like that will last me plenty.
Yeah.
But it will still run out, especially if you use the road shower to take a shower.
Yep.
But yeah, you can really do this on a budget, food-wise. If y'all just been eating primarily what you shoot, talk to me about the staples. Everybody has their little tricks that they always have in the truck.
Man, that's one of my favorite parts about coming to this part of the world is I think a lot of these people rely on hunters coming in. So we've been trying to eat out quite a bit. We'll eat breakfast at camp, but we've been trying to eat out and just talk to the locals and see what they have to say. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about going to all these new places is going supporting the local communities that rely on hunters coming in and just chatting with everyone and getting to know new people. So we've been eating out quite a bit. We might have had one of the best pizzas I've ever had last night.
Yeah, fully made right there in front of you, pretty much. Already made. Like it was probably one of the best pizzas I think we've had.
It's funny you say that. I almost asked you which town, but I still don't want to get too many specifics. People are gonna be able to whittle this down. But I found one 2 years ago when I came up here. I found one in the most podunk little small town that you could have ever imagined. We just found a local watering hole, and we walked in there just expecting to get a beer. This place didn't even have hours.
I'm almost certain this is the same place.
Okay. You walk in and it's you don't know when they're open. They're just if there's customers, we open. And I'm like, all right, different world. And we went in there and they had a little pizza menu, man, chicken bacon ranch pizza.
Oh, that's the same one we had.
All right, so this is kind of we'll confirm afterwards. But yeah, I remember 2 years ago, me and my buddy Harold, we both got it, and we're just like, this is the best pizza I've had ever. And I didn't know if it was just we've been starving out on the prairies for a week. But to your point, like I always try and support the local economy. I'm under no like assumption that like I'm the savior of anything, but it is important to where when we're just getting water, the owner of that local hardware store came up to me asking where we were from, and I told him Tennessee, and he's like, welcome to our town. We know that you can go anywhere in the state. We appreciate you coming in and spending money. All right, fellers, we're back. The audience didn't even know we went anywhere, but through technical difficulties, we finished a great episode. I wish the audience was there to witness it. It would have won all the podcast awards out there in the world. But instead of sitting down at the time, we realized that we pretty much didn't record anything from where it left off. We decided that we're in Montana. Instead of talking about hunting, we're actually going to go hunt for a little bit. But we were back at the truck now. It's beer 30. We are recapping some things. It was actually kind of nice. It was kind of cool talking before hunting and then going out there, sharing the field. It's always fun getting to know people like through the field, how they like to do things, their dogs. And I have to say, usually when you drop 5 or 6 dogs at once, 2 or 3 guys that don't really know each other, aren't used to each other. Usually it's like a soup sandwich, a little cluster. But this one, it went pretty smooth. I enjoyed it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All the dogs were backing each other, cooperating. Nobody was hacking the dogs or anything like that. It's enjoyable. Myself and Tyson, we didn't get anything. But Lars, you came up. Tell the story. What happened?
Yep. So I split off from you guys because Molly had a cactus right in between her eyes somehow. That's probably why she came back to me after she was like 450 yards away. And then she comes back, cactus right in the middle of the eyes. And
like a short hair puppy, man.
Yep. And split off. And then the dogs started to get really birdy and went down to that ravine. And I kind of pulled them off from it a little bit because I was trying to catch up to you guys and came back around the corner. And four birds get up, and I was just like, man, gotta trust your dog. Gotta trust your dog. And I make that mistake every year. Then I lost you guys pretty good, and I was like, well, better just go up on that hill. So went up to the top of that hill, had Molly on the left side, Rika on the right side, about 200 yards each way, and then I watched Rika bump a covey of 2, and I was like, man, that sucks. And I keep walking, and they're even further now. Like Molly's 250 on my left, and Rika's 300 on my right. And a Sharpie just comes up right in front of me, looks at me, flushes, and shot him. And then still got a little bit of dog work on there because Molly had her first retrieve on a wild bird, which
there
was,
you go.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's huge for a 6-month-old pup, especially. Man, I told you while we were out that you were getting frustrated with her at one point, just slightly, and you're like, man, what? And I'm like, dude, that 6-month-old dog had to have air trailed. It was 100 yards, easy, all the way to the bird, and she just, young dog, inexperienced, just kind of crowded it a little too much, and we saw it flush, and I'm like, dude, don't you like that? I'll take that any day of the week, right? Like that's what we want out of a 6-month-old dog. And then you said that she's been hunting 3 days hard in a row. I mean, for a 6-month-old pup, like what I saw out there, I'll take her if you want to leave her behind. I mean,
I've watched a lot of 6-month-old puppies, and that little Molly she's lights out. She got a heck of a nose on her.
Yeah.
But I think once she gets a little older and mature and puts the pieces together, it'll be fun. She's a big running, and that's what we like. I hear big running dogs.
Yeah, especially in this environment and in this specific hunt. Which brings me to a question for you guys, because we talked about first time up here, getting the lay of the land, figuring it out, and we're hunting a lot of BMA, which is ag and whatnot. And out here, it's more contiguous. It's more contiguous, grassland type prairie, probably a little bit closer to what the average person would probably picture before coming up here.
Oh yeah.
What was y'all's thoughts going into this compared to hunting the other stuff? Because Lars, I think you were like, while we're waiting for the heat to kind of wear off, you're looking around like, really, there are birds out here?
Oh yeah, I was having doubtful thoughts for sure. Like I'm looking out and I'm like, man, there's no way a Sharpie is out here.
Yeah.
And like, it's not what we've been hunting. Like we've been finding them in ag, in little coulees, and just not this,
Yeah.
not in the slightest. So when we first saw this, I was like, there's no way there's Sharpies out here, because I've never seen them in this type of terrain. So when we started,
it didn't take long. It wasn't even us getting in the field. We were still, trying to get our stuff together to go out on our end. But some of the other guys in camp, they just crossed the road and went to the other side, the side that I was planning on walking. That was the one I was pointing out to y'all, like, hey, that draw. I was hoping the other guys, but you snooze, you lose, and they went out there and they weren't, I don't know, 75 yards in the field or something. Boom, boom, and I just look up and you're like, holy crap, there are birds out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you had a good point. Like, what happened? Where were the Sharpies before the agriculture? Like the ag fields, like they were in stuff like this.
Yeah,
and like, I mean, I knew I would have thought I'd have seen more Huns out here than Sharpies, just from hunting Idaho and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, I mean, there's just few Sharpies out here.
I think a lot of people get weighted down by ag, and rightfully so. Good. You're going to find birds around it, but sometimes I think it's worth asking the question, like, what did these birds do before man was here cultivating the land, right? Like before mass agriculture, Mother Nature took care of these birds, especially the native birds. But I also think that there's an underlying reason why birds such as huns and pheasant continue to improve, and some native birds such as sharptails and prairie chickens and sage grouse, they're struggling just because the landscape has altered. Once it's mass ag, it's hard to get out of it because somebody's working that land and somebody paid for that land, and they're going to need some kind of return on the investment. But that's why I like finding large expanses like this, because I truly, like, when I come out to the prairies, I want to feel like I'm in the prairie and not that somebody drove a combine over it, last week. And again, not to knock anybody's living or way of life, but when it comes to hunting these birds, I like kind of transporting back and forgetting that, that nobody's tilled this land.
Yeah.
100%.
This was like a lot more interesting of an experience. It was a lot cooler in my opinion. It felt more wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot just coming up and hunting all that ag field and stuff. And like the open field units for like the upland birds. But coming out here, I mean, it was totally different. But I can start just kind of putting pieces together, and it felt more wild. It was like, no one's tilled this. I mean, those could have been the first. I mean, we could have been the first people those Sharpies have seen. Like, just a lot of young birds, and like, it felt. I mean, you take a step back, and someone hasn't walked to that field 15 minutes before you got there.
Right.
So.
There's not shotgun shells. There's not a whole bunch of litter out here. It does bring me into, I've spoken in the past on certain trips, such as like South Dakota, and you get in these large expanses, the grasslands. There are still certain grazing allowed on it, contract grazing and stuff. And ultimately, while you and I got skunked today or tonight, while Lars had to show us up, and he had to break off, and he took pity on us.
I'm used to it, so don't worry about it.
But one thing that we did notice is, like, something that was obvious over here and not across the street from where I was originally planning on going. It was a little more grazed over here to where you had some great security cover for the birds, but there was no food. None. And that's what I noticed. So when you kicked up your birds, Lars, did you notice some kind of food in that area on the ground, or was it still just more of the same? And
it was still a little bit more of the same. But it was just a touch thicker. It was kind of like what we talked about earlier, to where it had some 9-inch tall grass, but then it also had some 14 to 24-inch grass. So I think that had like cover, but then they could still see a little bit.
Right.
Which it looked a little bit better. And basically everywhere we went over there, those two dogs were just tails wagging, birdie as all get out.
I think every single dog got birdie, even went on point at one point or another. It's that you had singles sporadically spread out, and the more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense if you consider there's no food. So, like, why would they group up together if there's not a whole lot of food?
Sure.
But maybe there's enough food in that one spot for the single or something like that. I don't know. Conjecture. This is how you kind of piece together the pie throughout years of doing these trips. But yeah, it was fun to to at least get to share the field with each other, and glad that you guys got to experience a new landscape. I'm curious if y'all come back up here next year or something, if y'all will focus in more on this or still go back to the ag. Or generally what I do is still just mix it all up together.
That's what I was kind of thinking, is do a little bit of both and try to figure out this landscape, because that's one of the coolest things about hunting and funnest parts is figuring it all out.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a mix and trying this stuff out quite a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, out here you can let the dogs just go. Ag fields, you got a main road here, you got something here. It's like, so you gotta keep them in, but like out here, it's like
And that's what I was telling Lars before we started. I know you've been listening to me for a while. I can tend to get a little too in the clouds, like thinking strategy and figuring it out. But when it's a hunt like this, it's like, dude, just let them rip. Like just get the dogs that are gonna burn the prairie up and just spread out and go, and they'll find the birds if they're there. And that's a big reason why I like the early season prairie hunting. It contrasts very nicely with my like October in the Northwoods, where it's more of a chess match almost. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. But I do know, before the recording and the technical difficulties on the last one, I was asking the biggest lesson that you guys have learned since coming here. And Lars, not to give away your answer, but you essentially said boots on the ground, get boots on the ground. And then, of course, I made a nice little segue into the fact that you work for Crispy Boots. And the fact that the footwear is really like, it kind of transcends all upland hunters. No matter what kind of upland hunting you do, no matter which breed of dog or shotgun preference or any of that stuff, no matter what, you still need a good quality pair of boots. Kind of give us the high wave tops of what is important for an upland hunter to consider when figuring out the right boot for them and what they like to do.
Yeah, so kind of like you said, you can't go into any field, no matter if you're chasing chuckers, huns, Sharpies, woodcock. You can't go into a field without a good pair of hunting boots, because if you don't have a good pair of boots, that's the first thing that you're going to realize and get you out of the field faster. I mean, we did probably 10, 12 miles today. Not a ton, but good footwear. My feet are the last thing that I'm worried about right now. And I think that people just need to start to listen to their feet a little bit more and get that protection. You only have 2 feet and you only get one set, and you got to protect them right now and make sure that you keep them right.
There's so many aspects of the foot. It can kind of be daunting or even, make some people anxious when they start trying to figure out all of the different features when you're talking about the height of the boot, the material of the boot, the weight of the boot, all of this stuff kind of comes into play. So kind of your thought process when it comes to, let's just keep it in the upland family, what are we looking at in terms of your preference when it comes to, like, do we want a 9-inch boot or just ankle, or even some of the tennis shoe boot style that you're kind of seeing a little bit more of nowadays?
Yeah, so for me personally, like if I'm out here in the prairie, I prefer just a little bit lighter weight, a little bit more flexible boot, just because I don't need an extremely stiff mountaineering style boot to go do 10, 12 miles in the prairie. As far as height goes, I prefer a little bit shorter of a boot, just because I think an 8-inch tall boot, you can get just about the same amount of support as you do in a 10-inch boot. I'd like probably 95% of the support throughout the ankle bones, because your ankles are really only sitting about 4 inches above your heel. It doesn't need a 10-inch tall boot to really secure that ankle, especially with some of the boots that we have that have our ankle bone support system. That's basically like a memory foam like material that's going to wrap completely around your ankle bones and give you significantly more support as soon as you tighten up those top 3 eyelets. So you can get away with shorter boots in more technical terrain.
You're talking about the stiffness of the boot. I generally have, occasionally I'll get somebody asking about boots, and that's where my head goes to, is how stiff or flexible you want a boot, more so than even the height and all of the other stuff. because essentially what you said, like think of it like the more steep terrain or the more rugged terrain, the more stiffer of a boot that you want. You want it stiff. You can almost like climb stairs on the side of a mountain, just dig your toe in and climb up. But it also helps the fact that like if you step on a rock or a boulder the wrong way, your foot's not going to flex around that rock. It's going to stay stiff. And there's something to be said about the more flexible of a boot and your foot, going with it. It's kind of like walking in sand. It's going to fatigue your foot quicker over the day. What's the general kind of how Crispy sets up the stiffness of their boot? Because you guys have like a rating system or something, don't you?
Yep. So our stiffness rating scale goes from 1 to 5. 1 being very comparable to like a flip flop, and 5 being about as stiff as a ski boot. And we say that a lot of people want to go to a stiffer boot in more technical terrain, but also I know people like Matt Davis, for instance. He wears a 2 flex basically no matter what terrain he is in. He's chasing snowcocks right now. I believe he's in a 2 flex boot, and same with one of our other buddies, Alan, and that's probably some of the most technical terrain you can get in. But then there's other people like myself and Tyson here who want that 5 flex boot when we're in the technical terrain, because I feel like I don't get as much foot fatigue. Like I wore these Laponias, which are a 2 flex last year on a chucker hunt, and my feet were barking at me. Then you throw on a pair of stiffer boots, and it was just money.
Yeah.
Just like you said, kind of like going up a flight of stairs.
It's one of those, I showed you earlier, I kind of have a 2 boot system. And one is the older Crispy. I can't even remember the model. Me and names don't mix, but it's more flexible, but then I also have the stiffer boot in the box too. And that's been something that's frustrated me for years now. Is like, why can't I find one boot that transcends all the different types of hunting that I do? And I understand that I'm not going to say unique, but the average person probably doesn't experience the numerous different types of hunting that I kind of do for the most part. And so maybe they're not in the position of needing a flexible boot today and then a stiffer boot tomorrow. Do they make one boot that kind of fits all, or does it just, to use Matt as an example, it's just like, hell or high water, I'm just wearing a 2 flex.
Yeah. So we do make a few models that I would say are extremely versatile for those people that want that one boot that they can take here in the prairie, but they can also take out in the Chucker Hills or chasing woodcock, and that would be like the Nevada or the Guide, and they're sitting at a 3 flex. So that kind of just tells you like that's right in the middle. It's going to be comfortable on flat ground, but still going to be rigid enough to take you into that more technical terrain. Although I personally prefer kind of having that system. So I have my lightweight early season boots for the prairie, and then I have a pair of extremely stiff boots for when I'm chucker hunting, and I'm also a little bit of a big game hunter, so I have a pair of 4 flex just standard brick stalls that I bring into elk hunting when I have a heavier load on my back.
What about the material? You have all leather, you have synthetic, you have a mixture of both. What are we gaining and losing based on the different type of material that somebody selects?
Yeah, so when you go to an all-leather boot, you typically get a little bit more durability, although it's going to be a little bit heavier and not quite as breathable. When you go to a synthetic boot, it might not be as durable because it's a little bit more prone to cactus punctures to that GoreTex liner. With our new materials, it's not quite as much. Like we use this material called PU Tech. It's basically a Cordura that's infused with polyurethane. So cactus don't typically get through it. I mean, you still might get a stubborn one that'll get through it.
Hits at the perfect angle or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. But those are going to be quite a bit lighter weight and significantly more breathable. And we use all GoreTex liners in our boots too, which we have found to be the best waterproof membrane on the market, and that's why we use it. And it's going to help push out that moisture. We use a little bit thinner on those synthetic boots as well to help push out that moisture.
Insulated versus non-insulated, because this is a big topic. This is one of the, like, I personally can't do insulated boots. I don't care how cold it is outside. Like my feet will just sweat. I can wear the lightest pair of socks. And insulated boots, like it's just too much for me. I'd rather thicken up the socks and go with a non-insulated boot. Generally speaking, is this once again personal preference, or do you kind of see a trend or common decision amongst upland hunters?
Amongst upland hunters in particular, I see more non-insulated boots than anything, and that's for the sole reason of people are moving. And if you're moving, you got good blood flow, good circulation, so your feet are typically going to stay warmer. For the person who's hunting whitetails in the Midwest, where it could be 4 degrees outside, and you walk to the stand 2 miles in and sit there, that's when your feet typically get cold. So for all these upland guys, you typically mostly see non-insulated, but you still get some guys who their feet just run cold, and there's so many different factors that run into cold feet. Like if you're hydrated, if how active you are. Circulation is probably one of the biggest things. A lot of people think that I'm going to wear 2 pairs of socks or a thicker pair of socks to keep extra insulation or anything like that, but it can actually do the exact opposite. So when you put an additional pair of socks on, you're going to actually lose more circulation, and you might get a little bit more insulation from the sock, but you're doing yourself a disfavor by cutting off that circulation.
And that's really interesting is, years ago, back when I was in boot camp, I had a drill sergeant that warned everybody, like when it got really cold and wet, and he was like, y'all are going to want to wear more socks. I'm telling you, don't do it. Like, wear less. And it's something to do with the body heat kind of warming up the air around within the boot. The insulation is the same concept of, like, recently I was researching rooftop tents, and it's like, they intentionally leave little air pockets, so to speak, to help insulate for you. And so if you fill up that void within the shoe with another layer of sock, you think that it's going to keep your foot warmer, but in actuality it actually makes it colder. And I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of like specific terminology in there that I'm missing. But that being said, like the drill sergeant kind of wore that into my head. And same concept with sleeping bags. A lot of people think that you want to put on all these clothes to climb up in your sleeping bag, when in actuality, like you strip down and get in your sleeping bag. The sleeping bag will actually keep you warmer if it's properly rated for wherever you're at, right? So when we're talking about socks, really everybody kind of, tell me if I'm wrong, probably just looks at socks as like, get merino wool socks. Would you advise just merino wool socks with all of your boots, or do you guys sell socks? Is there something that y'all recommend for like different models or different types, like material wise, not brand wise, of course?
So socks are a very important key to boots, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. I mean, before I started working at Crispy, I was wearing Stance or Nike socks and wondering why I kept getting blisters. They're just normal cotton socks, and that's one of the key factors as well, because you can get so much more fitment with a sock, and that's what I usually recommend socks for, fitment rather than anything else. Like in these boots right now, I'm wearing a Farm to Feet Damascus sock, which is a lightweight targeted cushion sock, so on your heel and the top of your arch and the toes, it's going to be a little bit thicker because it's a targeted cushion. And that in these boots just fits perfectly. In one of my other boots, it's called the Kenai. It's a little bit higher volume. I've got a really low volume narrow foot, so I have to go to an aftermarket insole and a full cushion merino wool sock. A lot of socks come down to preference, and I would try 10 different pairs, and once you find a sock that works best in that boot, stick with that sock in that boot.
I would agree. I've got like 10 to 15 pairs of the same exact sock.
Yeah.
And so I can wear it through the hunting season. And I always have fresh socks because I've got one that works really well for me. And if I veer away, I get blisters. The boots don't fit right, and I'm just miserable the whole time.
Yeah.
So I've got. Yeah,
see, I don't have that many pairs of socks.
Yeah,
I have like one of each type, like an early season sock, a mid season, and a late season, and then I kind of cycle them through.
For sure.
Yeah, that's kind of how I handle the socks. Something aside from the socks that maybe other people don't associate typically with footwear, but makes a big difference in this world, especially like if you're more like on the western side of the country, is Gators. And this is something that you guys just released and just announced. Talk to us about your Gator, what makes it different than the other ones on the market, and why, if somebody hasn't really been using a Gator up until now, maybe they should consider that.
Yeah, so if you're joining us on the video, you can see this. This is our Quarto Gator. So our short gator more for early season. It just goes right above the boot. It'll fit on 4-inch boots or 6-inch boots all the way up to 10-inch tall boots. And all this gator is really here to do is protect it from getting seeds or just a bunch of garbage in the top of your boots. It's still DWR coated, so it's still going to shed that water if you do go through morning dew, so it's not coming into through the top. But the most interesting thing about this gator in particular is that it can be strapless. If you've worn gators in the past, you know that the first failure point is going to be the strap because you're walking on it, you're walking through rocks, basically anything that just wants to tear through that strap. And we've completely eliminated that with some of our models that have this little strap system in the back. So there's a two-way attachment point on the back of the boots to where it connects in to makes it so you're allowed to wear this this gator without a strap. And we have this in the short gator, the Corto, as well as the Alto. The Alto gator is going to be more for your wet climates, snow, where you need a taller gator that's waterproof. It's going to be just below knee height. It's going to have a 600D nylon material lower, so it's going to be extremely abrasive resistant, really, really durable with a two-way stretch on the top. So it's going to more so like conform to the exact shape of your calf. That one's going to be available strapless as well. And you don't have to have a crispy boot to have this gator. It will ship with a strap, and that strap is actually replaceable. So we've tried to make this as versatile as possible while still being the best gator on the market.
And if somebody's not familiar with gators in general, and this is an audio podcast, maybe they're not watching it, the strap that you're talking about kind of goes underneath your foot, kind of like a stirrup strap. If maybe somebody grew up playing baseball, is familiar with that term, the stirrups. But like you guys have these little grommets or loops around the backside of the boot that it hooks on, so guys can get rid of that little stirrup strap. But even if you don't have the crispy boots, or maybe the model of crispies that you have that they're a year or two old, maybe they don't have them, whatever, you can get this gator with the strap, but it's replaceable. So most gators, the strap wears out and you got to buy brand new gators.
Exactly.
This one, you can just get a new strap and replace it, or get the model of the boots that you don't even need the strap. And to me, that's like a game changer when it comes to gators. You and I spoke earlier, like I don't use gators very often just because where I hunt mainly, in the Southeast, other than my trips every fall, it's not really necessary. Like they just get torn up in the quail briars and brush and stuff. But something like this that you guys have, I think would be more durable and longer lasting, especially with the strap. If I was to use it, just being able to replace that's a huge upgrade in the gator game, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Earlier, like in the summer, I was able to wear this like dog training and everything.
Yeah.
And when you're training and it's super hot outside, I'm wearing my shorts, putting my boots on, throwing this gator on, and I'm not having to worry about seeds or anything going in. Because there's times where I just don't want to put pants on. I just want to wear my shorts, like when you're out training your dog. And yeah, they honestly are. I've tried a lot of gators and super lightweight, make it so no seeds go in, and then I don't have to worry about the putting it on every time, the strap underneath causing the issues, all that stuff. So yeah, I've loved it from the customer side of things. So
well, one thing I do have to ask on the gator, because training season, that's a great quality to have, a solution for that while it's hot out. But while it's hot early season, we're out here in Montana right now, there's snakes about. Do you guys have a snake grade quality gator, or is that even discussed yet?
It hasn't been brought up yet, but I know when I get back to work on Thursday, it's definitely going to be brought up, because I know that's a pretty big deal, especially back east in the South.
Every guy in camp here, as soon as you brought this up, was like, "What about snake gators?"
Yep, exactly. And snakes are one of my biggest fears. That's one reason why I was like super iffy about this place, because I hate rattlesnakes. Yeah. More than anything.
Did y'all see any while y'all are out here?
Nope.
Okay.
I haven't seen one.
So Randall, man, he's legit.
That's why we just sent him off by himself tonight. And we
went
the opposite direction.
You take that voodoo over there. But, I was riding horseback a couple days ago in North Dakota. My horse stepped on one as well. So, they're about, when it's hot like this,
one of the main reasons that gators are used is because to keep that water from coming in from the top of your boot. So even if you're walking through a cut cornfield at 8 a.m., there's going to have that morning dew on there, and then people think that their feet are getting wet, and it's because they are, and people don't realize that there's a big hole in the top of the boot.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that moisture, the dew on the the leaves and the grass at knee and shin high just wicks down to your foot, and then it just sits there and puddles up. And then if you have merino wool socks on, good luck. Like it's just gonna collect, and you just have a sponge in your foot, in your boot.
Gravity's just gonna pull that water down, and it's just too much water for that GoreTex liner to be able to push it out. So that's one of the key benefits is walking through that, and snow from keeping snow from going down over the top of your boot. And in our tall gator, I've actually crossed creeks in that while chasing chuckers, and I've been well over the height of my boot, and it makes it so you can cross creeks as well.
Cool.
When it comes to picking a boot, we've got 47 different models now, I believe. So it can be a lot to handle.
It's a lot to pick from.
Yep. So I would definitely recommend anyone who's in the market for new boots to just give us a call at Crispy. You're never going to have a robot picking up the phone. There will be a person there from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and it's going to be someone who hunts and someone who's extremely knowledgeable about the product and can get you in the right boot for your exact circumstances.
So my audience, if they call, first off, it's nice to actually be able to call a number and get a human being.
Real person.
Usually now it's like you get a robot that leads you to another robot that eventually leads you to a person, on the opposite side of the world that doesn't even speak your language. So it's nice that you actually can get somebody on the phone and talk to them. And you just said that they're hunters. Do you guys have a healthy number of upland hunters, gun dog owners? Like, will they be able to actually relate to it, or is it just, they're going to be reading off a sell sheet?
Absolutely, yeah. There's no sell sheets at Crispy. Yeah. The main thing that we try to do is just get people in the right boots, and there's a few upland hunters in there. There's a kid who's got a short hair, poodle pointer, which is, I've never heard of so many poodle pointers till I came up here. A little off track.
In this camp, we've got a handful of.
But people in that office are the same people that are out putting heavy miles on the boots. So, and we understand the footwear, and we understand being a hunter and how important it is, and getting people in the right boots, because that's part of the biggest struggle. And we've got boots for narrow feet, wide feet, standard feet, and sometimes it takes just asking a few questions, and it'll only take 2, 3, 4 minutes, and we should be able to get you in the correct boot.
It's nice to know that you have an option to pick up the phone, call somebody that not only does what you enjoy doing, but that they more importantly understand the demands of what it is that you do. And especially when we're talking about footwear and you're walking and going for 10 miles a day, that can wear on you. So, anybody listening to this, it's, check them out, and especially the Gators. There's another piece of equipment that's kind of a staple in what we do, and that's called the shotgun. I've heard a few stories of Tyson's experience with the shotgun here this week, and you do understand that you have to put shotgun shells in the shotgun, right?
Shotgun shells are kind of a staple to do it to what we do. I mean, you can have the shotgun.
It's part of the equation.
But when you pull up and it clicks and clicks, it doesn't work out very well, and the bird keeps flying away. But when you're a little shorter than your hunting partner, and three of your steps equal one of Lars's. I mean, we had Titan go on point, and I had to run to keep up, and my shells popped out of the gun, and well, what do you know? I missed the bird, and kept on flying away.
You had the shells in the gun.
They were in the gun.
They popped out.
That's what I'm telling myself. I'm pretty sure I didn't forget. I may have forgotten, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that they popped out as I was running up to catch up to Lars. We got to the point. It was a beautiful point. Amazing dog work. We had Titan on point, my Irish setter backing, a poodle pointer backing, and then we had your wire hair backing, and then a short hair pointing Huns just up a little bit, and the Huns were going, and then the Sharptails all came up, and Lars dumped one, and I missed both of them because I didn't have shells in my gun, so I didn't even miss, and I didn't count it to where I missed. I actually shot 100% in that field when I put shells in the gun.
Now, Lars, you know Tyson a lot better than I do. You've spent more time in the field with him.
Here we go.
Over and under of him actually putting shotgun shells in the shotgun and them falling out, or him just forgetting altogether. Is he a dunce that forgot to put the shotgun shells in there, or is he clumsy and now he littered and left shotgun shells on the ground?
I'm saying the shells didn't make it in the gun. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
Especially with how this whole week's been running on very minimal sleep.
Very little sleep.
As it should be when you do these trips.
There was a reason why on our little mid-break here, I made sure to show you guys my shotgun shells and as they were going into my shotgun so that we knew. I mean, I didn't need it. We obviously didn't need them, but they were in there. So if something did work out, I had them.
You got to be prepared. Speaking of the shotgun shells going in the shotgun, what shotguns are we carrying?
We got a mixture of those as well. I'm shooting. I got a 28 gauge as well as a 12 gauge here. The 28 gauge is what I'm pretty much sticking with this time. I have a 12 gauge Smith & Wesson that I bring, semi-auto, and that's when I want a lot of birds to hopefully go down, pull the semi out, and we go that route. But
See, and I'm the exact opposite. I've got a side-by-side. It's a Weatherby Orion 20 gauge, and there's only 2 shells in there, and there's 4 in my Benelli Montefeltro 20 gauge. And more stuff dies with the 2 shots than with all 4 in the Montefeltro.
Efficiency comes out ahead.
Yep, that's exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. You the 28 is kind of getting your attention.
Oh, yeah.
I'm starting to drink the 28 gauge Kool Aid myself. I have the brand new Upland Gun Company shotgun, which you guys got to see earlier. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that here in a second. But having the 20 and 28, I just started with the 28 yesterday. And after the damage I did with it on the birds, I mean, from the sharps, the huns, and the sage all in one day, I'm sitting here. I took the 20 out today because I want to compare and just get a feel for it and whatnot. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that the 28 gauge. I kind of felt like I was just going out with a little overkill on the 20 gauge after seeing the efficacy of the 28. It's just. What about the 28 that you find intriguing, or does it just feel right?
Honestly, it feels. I shoot the gun really well, and it feels right. I mean, a lot of it obviously is your load, and then I'm shooting. Skeet to like improve cylinder or cylinder. I'm really open chokes. I'm shooting that pretty much the whole season, even into like February on late season chucker. But it's something about that 28 gauge. I mean, it patterns really well, and you can reach out there. And when you have awesome dog work that holds those birds down, it goes in and I really haven't had to chase any birds. I get hit when you hit them, it puts them down.
It's one of those things, I've heard it preached to. I've done episodes with the people that really know this stuff, and they come on and they talk about just picking the right load. It's not so much the gauge, it's picking the right shell. And you hear it, but then it's another thing when you actually get to apply it and see it firsthand. The fact that, again, yesterday I got to shoot all 3 species with the same exact shot shell. It was a 28 gauge, 7.5 shot, 3/4 ounce load, and it just worked like magic. And I'm like, man, there's more to this. And when it comes to the Upland Gun Companies, you guys got to put your hands in. You got to see my shotgun, but you also got to see Randall's over and under version of it. What was y'all's thought process? When are y'all putting y'all's order in and getting fitted and all that fun stuff?
It's going to be happening real soon. No, that I'm a big fan of the over under guns, and Randall's is, it's that their ultralight model, is what you said, the lighter one, and it felt like a feather compared to the 2 guns I'm bringing. And then that side by side, I've always loved side by sides, and your side by side, it's one of those guns that I could definitely be putting an order in on one of those.
Lars, what about you? Compare the side by side and over under.
Yeah, just the initial ergonomics and first thoughts on it. I was like, man, it's a light, slim gun, which is exactly what I look for, especially in hunting out west, because we're doing 10, 15 miles a day and climbing 5 to 10,000 feet of elevation. So carrying a 7-8 pound gun around all day is not ideal.
So weighs on you.
It weighs like 20 pounds by the time you get done.
Exactly. So when I felt the weight of your side by side, I was like, man, I might have to go take a look at their booth over in Kansas City this year at Pheasant Fest, and might have to get one on order.
Be sure to tell Larson or Jerry that I sent you there and hooked you here in camp with it. It's special, man, when you get out there and it's fitted to you. Like, that's the main thing. Like, as nice as the shotgun is, as good as it looks, the effectiveness of just how it pops in, like it just fits snug. And I know, Lars, you're a taller guy, lankier, longer arms, such as myself. Like you said earlier, it felt right. I can honestly say I've never picked up a shotgun off the shelf that fit me or even came close. I mean, when I got fitted, it was a good like inch and a quarter off or something like that from the length of the pull. I mean, I was shooting a youth shotgun essentially for my build, and this strip, like it just fits like a glove, exactly like it should. So I mean, regardless if you get an Upland Gun Company shotgun, which I think you should, because the value of it, what you get bang for your buck, and what you can build, it's night and day when you compare it to off the shelf. But either way, go get fitted and get the right shotgun for you, because you're a lefty.
Yeah. I shoot lefty, and I have to compensate for that, and like just even buying a lefty gun. Those are few and far in between. But even shooting a lefty gun, it just is either too long for me or too short, and I can't ever find that right groove. I think the one I'm shooting right now is pretty neutral, so it makes it to where I can keep it and put it where I need it to. But I'll be telling my wife real soon that I need a custom gun, so don't look at the bank account for a little while.
No, it's worth it. You'll spend less money on shells in the long run.
And I go through a lot of those.
It's an investment. It evens out. The field, right? Yeah. It's a mathematical equation, right? Well, guys, like I know this is kind of unique because we can't really remember exactly what we spoke about on the first leg of this podcast, but generally at the end of these things, I like to throw it to the guests and kind of let you guys take it from wherever you guys want to take it, and just ask, what's something I should have asked you guys that I didn't?
That's a good question. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
What kind of dogs are we running on this trip? We've got we've got 2 Pluto pointers, an English pointer, an Irish setter, a German wirehair, and a 6-month-old German short hair.
Yeah.
So we got a mixture of just about everything.
I love it.
We got Titan. I mean, a lot of you have probably heard the Chungaria podcast. Titan's a big running dog. We ran him earlier today, and he did 30-something miles earlier.
He was smoked. So poor dude was only running at like 200-300 yards, and he was just over here like, I can't believe he's sucked in like this. I'm like, bro, he's at 300 yards.
300 yards to me is I want him pushing 5, 6, 7. I mean, he'll touch 1,000. I mean, Lars has hunted with me, and I look down. I'm like, oh, Titan's on point. And it's how far? He's only 850 or only 900.
Yeah.
So I mean, it takes a while to get to him, but we have the big running dogs, and then we've got some super strong retrievers. We've got a good variety there. So I mean, we got Titan running far, his 6-month-old pup running way far, and then the rest of the dogs are pretty close, anywhere from the 100 to 300 yard mark, which I know some people think 300 is a long ways, but for me that's super close. But we got a good variety there.
Well, speaking of 300 being kind of the maxing out of the range of the dog, Lars, you're curious about the goose, Lucy, the small monster lander, before we went out there, and I told you, I was just going to drop Quinn, but I'm like, if you're interested, I'll drop her. But what was your thoughts about the small Muncie? This is your first time in the field with one. What was your thoughts coming away with it?
I thought they were so much fun to watch.
Yeah,
she is so into it. And she just back and forth, like so much energy. Like, I don't know. I could definitely see myself in the future getting one.
Yeah, man, you caught her on a good day. Everybody listen to this. It's funny. I catch crap because I'll give her crap. Some people are like, you need to be nicer to the goose or something like that. But I tell everybody, some of my best memories hunting is over that dog, and then some of my worst memories is hunting over that dog. So it's good days, bad days, Jekyll and Hyde, that all that stuff. But you caught her on a good day. She was fun. She was out there. She was into it. I think having all the dogs out there, she's like, I'm gonna push like an English pointer, and she got out there a few times. I was proud of her. But yeah, to your point, man, she you know, for some of her faults that, you know, I can see, like enthusiasm and especially her desire to retrieve and stuff like that. You can't discount that. But guys, it's been a pleasure. I know it was kind of unplanned that this worked out, but that's kind of
all because I slid up in your DMs.
Right, man. You know, the thirst trap of GDIY, that's what it is. But,
got me again.
Yeah. But it was a good time. I'm glad it worked out. You know, sometimes just the spur of the moment stuff is the stories, and you know, I'm glad that you guys made it out here. I know you guys are about to head home tonight. Is that?
We're gonna put a few hours on tonight. I mean,
okay.
we've got 13, probably about 13 and a half hours. So we'll drive for a little bit tonight. Probably throw the cots on the side of the pull off, find some BLM, throw the cots down, sleep right next to the truck, and then wake up early and throw it back in and head home. So
get the drive tomorrow under like 10 hours.
Yeah,
or so.
that would be nice.
Yeah,
that would be nice. So.
Yeah. Well, you guys be safe getting home. Thanks for joining us in camp. Thanks for the walk today, and thanks for the information on crispy boots and stuff like that. We'll have the link to the Gators and stuff like that in the show notes if anybody's interested. And you guys be safe getting home.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it.